After an extended race weekend at Dover, we're going to be looking over each race and going over things such as Junior Motorsports' continued domination at the track, Ty Gibbs versus Noah Gragson, and Ross Chastain versus Martin Truex Jr. We'll also be talking about start times in the Cup Series, as well as was Dover revitalized by the arrival of the next-gen car. We go over all this and more on this episode of 3 Wide. So you had the Xfinity Series kicking things off Saturday at Dover. On the front row, you had Brandon Jones and Sam Mayer, which was kind of representative of what we were going to see throughout the race today. Joe Gibbs Racing versus Junior Motorsports. Both teams, they've had strong runs at this track. They've had good results. So it was just going to be a battle between these two teams, who would come out on top. You also had Daniel Hemrick Racing with a broken bone in his right foot from a crash at Talladega when he was in the Cup race. So from what they said, he had to get a special shoe put on his foot just to try and get as much comfort as he could in the car. Obviously, having problems with your right foot is not ideal, but that was just something Daniel was going to have to battle throughout the day. And it was another relatively quiet race. You had some single car spins and just a few multi-car accidents in the back of the pack. But stage one, as I said earlier, you were seeing a lot of Joe Gibbs versus Junior Motorsports. You had Sam Mayer take the stage one win, followed by Justin Allgaier in second. Josh Berry would finish in third, followed by Brandon Jones and John Hunter Nemechek. You also had Ty Gibbs and then A.J. Allmendinger. Noah Gragson finished in eighth, Riley Herbst in ninth, and Sheldon Creed came in 10th. So early on, you could see that it was mostly dominated by those two teams. You had a little sprinkling of drivers from Colleague and Stuart Haas and Richard Childress. But stage two would really be no different. You had Justin Allgaier again get the stage win with Brandon Jones in second, followed by A.J. Allmendinger in third, Josh Berry in fourth, and Ty Gibbs in fifth. You had Riley Herbst finish in sixth, followed by Noah Gragson in seventh, and Daniel Hemrick in eighth. You then had the Richard Childress teammates of Sheldon Creed and Austin Hill round out the top 10. And from there, it was pretty much Justin Allgaier versus Josh Berry for the win. Behind them, you also had Ty Gibbs and Brandon Jones battling for a top 5. But ultimately, your top 10, you had Josh Berry come away with the win, his third career victory in the Xfinity Series, and following up after a solid second-place finish last year at Dover. You had Justin Allgaier finish in second, followed by Ty Gibbs in third, and Noah Gragson in fourth. Sam Mayer would finish in fifth, followed by A.J. Allmendinger in sixth. Brandon Jones would come home in seventh, and Sheldon Creed in eighth. Riley Herbst would finish ninth, and Ryan Sieg would round out the top 10. And the big takeaway from this was Justin Allgaier regaining some much-needed momentum. Through the first 4 races this season, he really started off hot. He had 4 top 10s and 2 top 5s. However, since then, he has really been on a string of some bad finishes. You had his best finish in that streak, 14th place finish. After that, there were 4 finishes outside of the top 20. So today, he was able to redeem himself in a way, finishing in second place, Dover being one of his better tracks. So it was a step in the right direction, and it helps that we're going to Darlington next week, another solid track for him. So he's definitely looking to regain some momentum. He probably would have come away with a victory or at least a good solid finish last week at Talladega. Just unfortunately, he ran out of gas there going to the last restart, which spoiled what could have been a solid finish there as well. But still, he was able to be competitive and run up front for most of the day and able to come home with a second-place finish. And really, it was a strong day for Junior Motorsports all together. They, as I said earlier, this is one of their best tracks as a whole. All 4 cars finished in the top 5. You had Noah Gragson up there, who's really been the best car for Junior Motorsports all season, got a couple wins, has been probably one of the better championship contenders for them. Josh Berry, who got the win in the Xfinity Series, he's had a quiet season, had some strong runs, just a few little bumps in the road, but overall just kind of having a typical Josh Berry quiet season. He can sneak up and get a win and have a solid finish at any point. Sam Mayer looked like it was going to be a rough rookie season for him. coming out of the gate. However, he has been able to pick up some momentum in recent weeks. Counting Dover, out of the last 5 races, he's had 4 top 5s. So he's really come on strong and got his feet up under him, which is good to see for him. Having all these strong runs, that will eventually lead to victory lane for him at some point this season in the coming weeks. It'll be interesting to see what he can get done at Darlington. I believe that's his first time at the track that I know of. I could be mistaken. And as I said earlier, the battle between Junior Motorsports and Joe Gibbs Racing, well, that kind of took a real literal turn on the track with hard racing between Noah and Ty Gibbs. Coming out of turn 4, you had Ty ahead of Noah, had made a pass. And from what I'd read on I forget whose tweet it was, had said apparently Ty was brake checking Noah, or at least that's what Noah's team was talking about. Noah still was not appreciative, gives Ty a bump coming out of turn 4, and pretty much stays on his bumper the whole way down the front straightaway. And as entertaining as the Sam Mayer versus Ty Gibbs rivalry is and will be, because I do not think that is over, I think this, if a little action kicks up between Noah and Ty, that could be even better, just because you got 2 very similar styles of racing as far as aggressiveness. Noah, I think, has really matured on the track and gotten a better handle on the car, but he has shown he's not afraid to mix it up on the track or off the track. So that could be a real good little battle as the season goes on, especially as we get into the playoffs, because these 2 guys are really the championship favorites. They've had probably the best seasons between all the drivers. So say we get down to Martinsville and, there's a spot on the line to lock yourself in for the next round for the championship. And if it comes down between these 2 guys, I mean, it could get really physical and get really interesting to watch. So I'm all here for that. I think Ty, the way he has raced all season long, it is going to eventually catch up to him, especially as we get into the playoffs. And he's shown that you can rattle him pretty easily. He can't take the hits as well as he gets them, as we talked about after Martinsville. So the field, I'm sure, is taking note of it, especially these guys that are in the playoffs, your A.J. Allmendingers, your Noah Gregsons, Sam Mayer, obviously, and even a Ryan Sieg, who's had a run-in with Ty Gibbs. They're definitely going to remember these things. So it could be something that might bite back at Ty, but, only time will tell, and we got quite a ways till we get deep into the playoffs. So all we can do is just sit back and watch and try to remember these things as well as the playoffs get started and we get towards these tracks like your Martinsville and your Bristols towards the end of the season. So now we had the Cup Series at Dover, and what would turn out to be a 2-day race event. You had the rain delay on Sunday, which would postpone the race until noon on Monday. And this was really going to be an unknown race for the Cup Series with this next-gen car. We've seen the next-gen car have positive effects and really improve the racing at tracks like Auto Club and Vegas. But we've also seen it, kind of have a negative reaction to the racing, like at Martinsville or Phoenix, that didn't improve, that actually in some cases made it worse. So it was kind of a coin flip which way it would affect this Dover race. Dover, especially in its recent run, is not known for its, exciting, sitting on the edge of your seat racing. The most exciting race that I can remember there, I can't remember if it was 2015 or 2016, where you had the really exciting battle between Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, and Matt Kenseth towards the end. I know Chase was still in the 24, Larson in the 42. But that was the last exciting racing that I can really remember at this track. Since then, it just hasn't been the same. And, with this next gen car, would it kind of revitalize the track? Would it, improve the racing or would it do the opposite and we would just have another really boring Dover race? Starting out the race weekend, we had the practices on Saturday, and you had a lot of drivers struggling with the car. You had a lot of drivers getting out of shape, wrecking, having to go to backup cars, struggling to keep their car going straight, which really gave me hope coming into the race that, anytime you see drivers struggling in practice, especially this season with this car, it's led to good racing. So I was hoping that would continue over into Sunday and now Monday. And going into it, and coming out of it, I can't say that I was disappointed. It was a really decent race. So, but before I jump ahead and all that, you had, as I said, the rain delay on Sunday. They had completed about 78 laps. The race started at 2 o'clock, and that was really kind of the hot topic on social media about this race. Over the past couple of years, NASCAR has really pushed towards going to these later start times, which is all, fine and good as long as the track has lights. When you go to tracks like Dover or Pocono or Michigan and we get, these rain delays pop up, it can really back NASCAR into a corner just because they don't have the lighting system to kind of delay it as long as they can into the nighttime. It's not really going to affect them. When we go to these tracks, starting late like this, I don't know why NASCAR continues to make this decision. It's something that's really kind of been a thorn in their side since they've moved toward these later starts. I just think if you're going to these tracks that does not have proper lighting, there's no reason why it should be starting that late. You should at least give yourselves a couple hours earlier, a green flag time, just in case. That kind of gives you that little cushion, because NASCAR's made great improvements as far as drying the track with the new Air Titan system. It's really, improved drying time for these tracks, but still, when you're starting a race at 2 o'clock, if anything substantial, any rain comes, it's just about impossible that you're going to be able to get the whole event done in this one afternoon. So that was a lot of people's complaint on Twitter, and I agree with them. They should really look at, especially with the schedule possibly, for next year, looking at these tracks without lighting, I'd go ahead and push it back, say we're going to start it at 12 o'clock or even, 1 o'clock. Just give yourselves an hour. That can make a huge difference in things sometimes. So, but I'm not the one that makes those decisions, neither is anyone else on social media. Obviously, it probably helps when NASCAR gets on there and sees, such an outcry from fans that, hey, we need earlier start times because people, we got to go to work on Mondays. We're not going to be able to catch the race. We got to depend on social media, and when we want to sit there and we want to watch the races, especially people that buy tickets to it and aren't able to stay and watch the race, after spending all the money they have to get there and to get a seat, it's almost a cheat for them that they don't get to witness it in person, because for some people that might be their only race they get to watch in person, or it might be their first ever race they're going and they've just left with a sour taste in their mouth from it. So hopefully NASCAR can straighten that out here with this next schedule. I'm not sure how set in stone things have to be before they can release it, or talking with the tracks. So we may not see any changes for this next schedule. It may be the next year. We're not real sure, but hopefully in the next month or two when we see it, we'll find out soon enough. So jumping right into the race, after all the discussion about the scheduling, stage one, you had Denny Hamlin come away with the stage win, which was really about the main highlight of his day. You had Chase Elliott finishing second and Christopher Bell with a solid third-place finish. Ross Chastain able to finish in fourth, followed by Martin Truex Jr. in fifth. Kyle Larson came home in sixth, followed by William Byron in seventh. You then had Chris Buescher in eighth and Kyle Busch in ninth, followed by Brad Keselowski in 10th. So after stage one, you see Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski up there. So a good solid start to their day, especially for Buescher, who got his first career pole on Sunday. And that was the big question on my mind was, could this translate into the race, or was it just the way they had the car set up to help the speed and get themselves a solid starting position? Obviously, they were able to, have a good setup overall and get a good some stage points at the end of stage one. And during the pit stops after stage one under caution, Denny Hamlin, he's leaving pit road. He loses his left front tire coming out of pit road. You actually, saw a little side-by-side race as who would get to the pit line first, the tire or Denny Hamlin. So that will be an automatic suspension for his crew chief, and I believe also the tire changer and the jackman. Again, I don't agree with that penalty, especially with these new tires. We're seeing pretty regular tires falling off these cars, so I don't know if they need to restructure this whole suspension plan, because I don't see how suspending these guys, sending them home for 4 weeks is going to help them. I think, especially with this new tire, you got to be a little bit more patient with it. Let these teams figure it out. If you want to say, okay, you lost your tire, go to the tail end of the longest line, okay, that's fine. But for these guys, losing time together for 4 weeks, that just seems like a little overkill. And that's pretty much Denny's race. I mean, really kind of fell off a cliff at this point. He had a lot to overcome. He had some more incidents, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. Ultimately, after all was said and done in Stage 2, you had Ryan Blaney come away with the stage win, holding off Kyle Busch. Blaney, he had older tires, and it was a very impressive job by him to hold off Kyle, who had fresher tires. It was some good hard racing, nothing dirty or over the top. Blaney just did an excellent job blocking Kyle's line, keeping him from getting by him. You had Alex Bowman come away with third and Martin Truex Jr. in fourth, followed by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in fifth and Ross Chastain in sixth. Eric Jones able to get some points, finishing seventh, and Harrison Burton was able to work some pit strategy, finishing eighth, followed by Chris Buescher in ninth, and Chase Elliott would round out the top 10. So with that stage finish, it really showed, if it came down to it at the end, if you had older tires, it was possible. If you could block the runs just right to stay ahead of the fresher tires. But we really didn't ever come to that point. There were so many issues with the tires. You had some drivers, having flat tire issues like Tyler Reddick and Ty Dillon. They had some issues pretty much on the same lap, losing their right front tires. So tires were very important for this race, but it was very impressive to see Ryan Blaney able to hold off a hard-charging Kyle Busch to get that important playoff point and those 10 extra stage points. So from there, we had quite a few cautions break out between stage 2 and the end, and it really, a lot of teams doing some different pit strategies. And at one point, a caution came out just as the leaders were hitting pit road, like Bowman and Kyle Busch, and that really threw everything over on its head. Ross Chastain, he at this point had kind of gotten in the front and was leading quite a few laps. You still had Chase Elliott up there and Truex. So some of the main players were still up there competing for the win. Ultimately, Chase Elliott would come away with the win, followed by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. with an impressive second-place finish. Ross Chastain would come home in third, followed by Christopher Bell in fourth. Alex Bowman would finish fifth, followed by Kyle Larson in sixth. Kyle Busch was able to recover and finish in seventh place, followed by Chris Buescher, taking advantage of that pole position. He was able to get an eighth-place finish. Kevin Harvick had a quiet, solid day, finishing in ninth, and Eric Jones rounded out the top 10. And for Chase, this was his first win since Road America that last summer, and it was his first race win on an oval since Phoenix 2020 when he took home the championship. So, and at this point, Chase, he was the regular season points leader, so he was able to extend that lead. And really, it's all been on consistency. We've had so many drivers, new drivers up front winning races, and drivers struggling to find consistency, that has been kind of the key part to this regular season championship battle. Chase, he's completed all but 2 laps on the season, and he has 8 top 10s to 2 top 5s. So even though he may not be up there, in the top 2, top 3 every week, getting all those top 10s, having a solid average finish, and, his worst finishes are a 14 and then one, I believe it was 26th, able to minimize your poor finishes is kind of, like what Matt Kenseth did back when he won the championship in 2003. But Chase was able to break through and get that all-important win to truly lock himself into the playoffs. And it was also a strong day for Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing. At one point in stage 2, you had Chris Buescher in third and Brad Keselowski running 8th. So obviously they had a good setup for Buescher. This was one of his better tracks, especially in his Xfinity Series days. He was able to get, stage points in each stage, get a solid top 10 finish. And while Brad Keselowski, the finish may not show it, he was able to finish in 20th place. But throughout the race, there was a lot of comers and goers all day, which is what I enjoyed the most. There never seemed to be like one true guy who was, pretty much pacing the field, lapping cars left and right. You had a lot of different strategies going on, especially the way the cautions fell. And it allowed to see some different drivers up front. I mean, at one point in the last stage, you had Justin Haley leading laps, running second as well. Brad Keselowski was able to get up to fourth. Bubba Wallace running in the top 5, and Suarez able to work himself into the top 10. And that's a good race to me. I don't like, sitting back and just seeing one guy pretty much lap the entire field. Nobody can catch them. Their only hope is on restarts, and that isn't much of a hope. It's nice to see these guys doing different strategies, able to get runs, able to have, some tire fall off. It makes it more entertaining for me anyway as a fan. And seeing drivers, struggling. Like I said earlier, you had Denny Hamlin who had a bad day after losing the tire. He had also some heavy damage from a spinning Cody Ware, where he lost a good chunk of his, right side door. He would come away, I believe, finished in 21st. So his season of struggle really continues. If he didn't have that win in Richmond, I think he'd be in pretty bad shape, which even with that win, he's not in the best shape. But he is looking better each week as each week goes along and the playoffs get closer, especially when, you have guys like Tyler Reddick and Joey Logano and Kurt Busch struggle during the race, and we're getting to the point in the season that, consistency is going to become really important if you don't have any wins. Getting these solid finishes, getting stage points at a premium, that is going to become bigger and bigger as each race goes along. And for those 3 guys I just mentioned, they have no wins. You want to start seeing some stronger runs more consistently, some better finishes. You want to see more stage points just to try and get yourself in a better position if it comes down to it, to lock yourself in on points for the playoffs. And Denny, that's where he's got a leg up on these guys. He already has that win. All he has to do is just keep trying to find, some consistency, get some momentum to kind of more solidify himself better for a playoff spot. As we get further into the season, you're going to see the aggression level pick up. Drivers are going to start battling harder for stage points. And if we get into a position towards the end of races where a guy's running second, like a Reddick or a Kurt Busch or Logano, and they don't have a win, you're going to see them probably start making more aggressive moves than they normally do, just trying to get that locked-in spot. So going on from that, Ross Chastain, who's had, is having a career year. This is, kind of what we were hoping to see out of him after his runs with Chip Ganassi Racing in the Xfinity Series and even last year in the Cup Series. This is a guy who's really worked his way up to where he's at now, kind of in an old-school way. He's done his time with his smaller teams. He got his opportunity, and he made the most of it. So, and Ross is a very aggressive driver also in an old-school way to me. He can give it just as well as he can take it. He has no problem blocking, racing hard, getting the most out of his car. He wound up crossing paths with Martin Truex Jr., especially on the last lap. Truex, I believe, had kind of run out of patience with Ross as the laps were winding down. They were battling hard for third place. And coming out of turn 2 on the last lap, Truex was trying to get a run on the outside. Ross kind of drifted up in front of him, slowed down his run, and Truex, he wound up, kind of losing control and hitting the inside wall, which pretty much ended his chance at a top 5. So obviously, and Truex was not happy after the race. He went straight to Chastain. They had a conversation, and afterwards Ross even said, I probably could have left him a lane up there, but I mean, to me, it's the last lap. Everything's on the line. You're trying to just finish as best as you can, hoping for the best. I don't see where Ross has anything to apologize. It's not like he doored him into the wall on the last lap for third place. He just simply drifted up, blocked Truex's run, and Truex just lost control of his car, which we saw all weekend was easy to do. So, but Ross is another one. He's definitely ruffled some guys' feathers with the way he's raced so far this season, but that's nothing new with Ross, and it doesn't seem like it really bothers him. He's going to go out there and run his race, which rightfully so he should do. I haven't seen him do anything just dirty, just low down, taking somebody out. He just races hard, has no problem blocking, bumping, doing whatever he can to get ahead. So that's going to be another interesting thing to watch as the season goes on is, does someone get tired of it and use Ross up? Me personally, I hope not. I don't think any Ross has crossed that line to cause that. But stranger things have happened, especially, when you get into the playoffs. Now it's time for my favorite part of the show where we put the spotlight on drivers who may not have come away with the trophy or the victory, but they were able to get some solid finishes, able to make the most out of what equipment they had, or whether it's they had to overcome something throughout the day and were able to make the most of it, or drivers who were able to get solid finishes in dire need of it. For me, in the Xfinity Series, I'm going with Sheldon Creed. He has got his fifth top 10 on the season. So far, he has no top fives. It's definitely been an inconsistent season for him. He'll get a top 10 or two and then kind of fall off for a week or two and come right back with another solid top 10 finish. So hopefully one of these finishes will kind of click with him, and he'll be able to start rattling off some top 10s and maybe sneak up for a top 5. Definitely got a good shot at it coming up at Darlington, where he was so dominant in the Truck Series last year. Interesting stat for him this season is he started in the top 10 in all but 2 races. So he's good at qualifying. He's able to get good starting positions, just unable to really kind of follow through with it and get a solid finish. Sometimes he just gets caught up in things that aren't necessarily of his own making. I remember the wreck at California. He got caught up in there towards the end. So hopefully Sheldon, he's a good driver. Hopefully can start getting some consistency. He's definitely got high hopes on him as well as his teammate Austin Hill. So we'll see if he can kind of step up and get some more top 10s and top 5s on a consistent basis from here on out. On the Cup Series side is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is my spotlight driver. He has shown speed early in some races. He's been able to get some stage points, in stage 1 of a handful of races this season, but he just hasn't been able to close out the race. Today was a complete race for him. He was able to finish in second. He got stage points, some good solid stage points in stage 2, kept his car clean, and really spent most of the latter part of the race in the top 10, top 5, just able to click off positions on restarts, and was able to get a second-place finish, his best of the year. And it was actually his first top 5 on the season and his second top 10. So Ricky is one of those guys with this new next-gen car. A lot of people looked at have a better season, since the car's kind of more, it depends more on the driver. It kind of highlights them more. But unfortunately, just has not been able to get the results. And in some cases, it's, he's just had stuff go wrong, whether it's mechanical or caught up in accidents. But today, as I said earlier, it was a complete race for him. He was able to show what he could do with this car. He's always a threat at these super speedway type races, so Atlanta and Daytona are going to be 2 tracks to definitely watch him. But Ricky is definitely, a upset contender. He could, come out of nowhere like he did today at Dover and get a win. And if he does that, it's really going to throw the whole playoff picture in a loop. He sits 27th in points right now. So, who knows what could happen if he can start getting some more consistent finishes out of it, putting himself in a position to take a gamble or take a risk and try to get himself a victory. It will definitely hype up, what looks like to be an exciting playoff run. So now looking ahead to this upcoming weekend schedule of races, we are going to have action across all 3 series at Darlington Raceway, and it is throwback weekend on Mother's Day weekend. So it's going to be fun to watch and see all these throwback paint schemes on TV or in person if you're going to the events. And this is a very fun weekend. I love to see all the different, throwback paint schemes. We've seen the pictures, the renderings, the drawings, everything, on our social media, or if you get on, websites, you can see pictures of them. But to see them in person on the track, if they're under the lights or under the sunshine, it's completely different. And there are several cars and trucks that I'm looking forward to seeing. And on that note, we'll probably swap up next week, our spotlight section. Instead of spotlighting the drivers, who drove the wheels off their vehicle and really got after it and got the best finish that they could, why don't we do a spotlight on the best throwbacks? And we'll do one for each series. I'm going to wait till I see them in person to make my decision, or at least on the TV. Not really. It's not like I'll be there to watch it, unfortunately. But if you have any ideas, or you got your nominee who you think was the best throwback paint scheme of the weekend, you can find me on Twitter at 3wide3 is my Twitter handle. Send me a direct message. You can, tweet at me and let me know what you think is the best throwback scheme. Or tell you what, you can even send me an email. You can send it to 3widepodcast@gmail.com. That is the number 3widepodcast@gmail.com. Shoot me an email. I want to hear from you. I want to see what y'all think is the best throwback scheme of the weekend. I've already got some in mind, but like I said, I'm going to wait till I see them on the screen, what they look like on the track, and before I make my decision. But send me what your ideas are, and maybe I'll shout them out for you. Looking ahead at the races, on the Truck Series side, you have Sheldon Creed, who is the defending winner. As of this moment, he has not entered in the truck races, so we should see a different winner in the truck side this weekend. Creed, he was able to sweep the races last year there at Darlington. On the Xfinity side, you have Justin Allgaier, who won last year at this event, and Junior Motorsports, they swept both Darlington races last year. And on the Cup side, Martin Truex Jr. is the defending race winner, and Joe Gibbs Racing is coming off a season where they swept both Darlington races last year. So a lot of one-team dominance or one-driver dominance last year at this track. It'll be interesting to see if Allgaier can build off the momentum he got from Dover, finishing second, and go back to victory lane. Or will we see someone like Sheldon Creed able to kind of carry that success at Darlington from the trucks to the Xfinity side and just build even more momentum, try and get some more consistency on his car? And on the Cup side, can Truex repeat as a winner, or will another JGR teammate come away with a checkered flag? Denny Hamlin has been very strong at Darlington, so this could be a good place for him to try and get another good solid run. Or will we see someone else stake their claim and win and possibly lock themselves into the playoffs, or get another win on the season and build more playoff points? It's going to be very interesting to see, and it'll all start with the Truck Series at Darlington. I want to thank you again for joining me and listening along. I hope if you haven't already, you hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcast from, on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or Stitcher. You can also find me at anchor.fm/3wide3. And I hope y'all have a good rest of your week, and have a wonderful Mother's Day weekend, and enjoy Throwback Weekend at Darlington Raceway, where we will go back over it same time next week.